I guess my first question would be, how's the last 48 hours been for you, given
It's
the
been,
weekend?
yeah, it's been good. It's everything's changed, but nothing's changed. I get a lot of funny looks on in the street, and but I take it all as motivation, and I never take the fan reaction for granted. It means the world to me.
Yeah, it is one of those things, isn't it, with Game of Thrones, where as with like superheroes, I mean, we touched on Deadpool and Wolverine. It kind of fans have such a concrete idea of what they want, and it's not always what they're going to get, and there's reasons for that. Do you kind of agree with that? That fans will be fans, and they won't always get what they want, but maybe they'll be rewarded further down the line, shall we say?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of everything for everybody in House of the Dragon. I think it's great to give the fans, what they want. Definitely never shortchange them of what made the original series land so well,
Mm.
but also give them a fresh spin. We always knew, like going into House of the Dragon, that we were laying a fresh foundation on the shoulders of a cultural zeitgeist, and so we want to pay homage to that and give the fans what they want, but also give them something that they didn't know they wanted.
How has it been for you guys as a cast? Because obviously you shot this a while ago, and now obviously how it's released, you're obviously having to sit on secrets, and then obviously now
Yeah,
family and friends know that you're in the show, and you're sworn to so many different secrecies and everything else. How have you found that process? Because it can be quite daunting for some people, I can imagine.
yeah. I find it like it's closure. I'm getting it all off my chest, and
Yeah.
I can kind of bookend it, and but it's been really therapeutic talking about it as well, and kind of sharing with people my theory on Aemond, and what inspirations I used, and things that I drew from, that really yeah, that I love. I kind of, I love acting, and so being able to talk about it as well, it's taken me a while to kind of get used to it and get warmed up to it, but so far so good.
So far, so good. Take me back to the beginning of it then, when you were like first offered it, or someone mentioned it to you and everything else. It's obviously a big deal for a lot of people, and I guess for some actors it could be like, no, I don't want to, I can't touch that. So was there a kind of strange thrill about, actually, if I was able to get this, there's something in this that's a little bit different to what I've done before?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've never played quite a villain like Aemond before, um, but I'd never watched the original Game of Thrones, the OG show. And I knew when I landed the part, I didn't want to watch it either. I didn't want it to influence my choices with Aemond, whether it be consciously or subconsciously. I wanted to bring something fresh to this world, and also quite otherworldly as well. So I drew inspiration from other worlds that particularly wasn't the world of Westeros, and bring something that was raw. Have you seen Game of Thrones?
Seen bits of it.
You've seen bits
I've
of it.
watched the bits of, yeah. So my brother is the big fantasy geek in my family, and
Uh,
I have watched it, but I haven't finished it all the way through.
yeah,
But there's something about House of Dragon that seems different. Do you know what I mean? Like there's things to it that I enjoy more than maybe I did with Game of Thrones. I don't know if that's something you've heard before, but House of Dragon, like you said, maybe for you as an actor, but for me as a watcher, it feels a little bit different than what the OG one was. Maybe that wasn't for me, but this one seems to be a little bit more. Maybe it's just
yeah,
the acting or the performances or the people that are in it. Just seems to be
yeah.
a
Well, they
bit more
say that when a
solid.
Targaryen is born, the gods toss a coin, right? And one side is greatness, the other side is madness. We've got a whole family of these
Exactly.
guys.
Exactly. Hey, you're talking to someone that sits and watches Family Guy on repeat. That's it's the kind of stuff that I watch. Do you know what I mean? Or Scrubs or something. I'm more of a comedy guy. But yeah. So when you step into this, I mean, it's such a huge undertaking. When you first kind of stepped into the world, with the design and all the CGI that goes on, is it kind of overwhelming, or actually do you actually enjoy that kind of challenge? Because with the show, it's very much about the characters, and all the other stuff is the exciting stuff. But for you as actors, it's the core characters and the stories that
Mhm.
drives you.
Yeah, I love all of those little relationships, around the council table. All of the subtext behind the text that I love to explore. But certainly, reading the script for the first time and recognizing that this isn't just television, this is HBO. Like every episode is as big as any film out there. And, as an actor, you can either, be intimidated by that or you can embrace it. And thanks to Amanda Knight, a hair and makeup designer, Caroline McCall, a costume designer, the whole writing team, all the crew on HBO, like, our work as a collaborative, their work as a collaborative, it makes my job a lot easier. So much of the work is done for you. And so it's a testament to their genius.
Hey, when you do that, I remember listening to people who have played villains who have gone under makeup or have had some stuff go to them, and for the first bit they're like, okay, I don't know where this is, but then when the stuff starts to get put on, your brain starts to go into, okay, I see it now, and I can feel it more than anything else. Did that help you? Obviously the wig is very distinctive, but everything else is kind of like, okay, I can kind of feel him now.
Yeah, it's the eye patch is like the finishing touch.
And the eye patch, of course, yeah.
As soon as that goes on, it's like, okay, my perspective has changed. I'm now Aemond. It's really and everything it represents as well. It's a tragedy Aemond wears, as well as his Targaryen blacks. But I loved it. It's
great. And obviously we talked about the sequels and everything else. Obviously the finales come out now. When you obviously got the scripts as you were going through, what was your take on it in terms of as an actor? Were you expecting it to go, had you been told kind of where it was going to go and what it was going to kind of finalize at, or were you kept in the dark as it went on before you were able to see? Because sometimes I know they're like, right, you can't see the final script until this day.
No, I think we got all eight scripts on the read through just before we went into shooting the second series.
That must have been a good day getting those last couple in terms of like acting stuff. It must have been like, oh my goodness, this is gonna for me personally, this is gonna be something special.
And you kind of see that in Aemond in the last episode as well. He starts to break a little bit. You start to see that kind of vulnerability simmer to the surface, which is really fun to explore. And I cannot wait to explore it even more in season 3.
Yeah. What drew you to him in the first place? What was it about him that kind of spoke to you and at the start of season 1? Because obviously he goes through quite a journey, as do all the characters. So he starts at one place and obviously he's in a very different place at the finale.
I think Leo Ashton's performance of young Aemond in episodes 6 and 7, that idea of a neglected, bullied boy who was super lonely and he never really found his place in the family. And then, you've got the oldest, largest, baddest dragon in the known world in Vhagar. And, she's so enormous, she can't fit within the confines of any castle wall either. And so Aemond and Vhagar, they're able to identify with each other in a way. I like to think that when young Aemond claimed Vhagar also claimed him in a sense as well. And just that story of, standing up in the face of adversity, and it's a tremendous feat of courage that he undertakes in episode 7 of season 1. I always try and remember, that little kid who was on the back foot and wasn't given a dragon egg growing up, and just always take that with me, especially with Aemond this year, because he hides so much as well behind his facade. He kind of stores it all away, but it still very much is there.
Yeah. For me, actually, watching it, he does remind me a little bit of Bruce Wayne in the sense that he has this history that he bottles up, channels it into something else, but also the real, you never really see the real quote unquote person. It's always the facade, if you like. Did that ever spring to mind with you, or did you read or any sort of particular characters that had that kind of dynamic?
Yeah, Bruce Wayne's a good one. That's a good one. I took inspiration from a lot of things, like there was, I've talked about it before, but Michael Mann's Heat, Robert De Niro's character, and that the code that he utilizes to maneuver New York without getting caught. And Aemond has a similar kind of code that in part stops him from feeling like that neglected bullied kid that he once was. So, Kirk Douglas from the Vikings. Maybe I should look into Rutger Hauer's character, ready for season 3.
Hey, you never
Draw
know.
something from
He's
him.
got so much going on, that guy.
Yeah,
Especially for a guy that's playing a robot, the kind of
yeah,
emotion and depth that he has as a villain, quote unquote.
so
Although most
dangerous.
villains don't believe that they're villains. They believe they're doing what they believe is right, regardless of who gets in the way. Which is, if you look at him or the Joker more recently, all that kind of stuff, and then
Mm,
people from that, it's kind of spiraled from that. I think they're the best ones, the ones that aren't trying to take over the world, the ones that actually have a rhyme and reason to what they're doing, even if it's not quite what it's supposed to be. Do you know what I mean? I think that's where
yeah,
the drama comes from. But look, yeah, hey, if I see some notes of Woodger Hauer in season 3, I know where it's come from.
yeah.
When did they show you the design of your dragon? Did they show you that very early? Because obviously you guys don't really get to see a lot of that. You see kind of the bits of it. I've seen behind the scenes of CGI of Emilia Clarke sitting on like a green teddy bear or something of the
Mm.
equivalent. How soon did they show you the designs? Because as you say, the size of it is extraordinary, and the design and everything is just incredible.
Yeah, I remember the first day that I went on set for a fitting before I started shooting on season 1. Ryan Condal got me into his trailer, and he showed me a picture of this bust of Vagar's head, and she's there with a massive jaws, and she's got this gullet, and she's just so big. And Brian was like, "So you're this big compared to Vagar," and I was like, "Oh my god, this is evil," this dragon. But yeah, I'm in love with her from the first moment I saw her. I just fell in love. We're a power couple.
Yeah. So you are the power couple of Westeros right now, yes.
Who's your favorite dragon, Scott? Who's your favorite dragon?
I quite liked, I can never remember the names, but Emilia Clarke's one.
Amelia
Uh,
Clark. Oh, okay.
is it Daenerys? Daenerys. Is it Daenerys the
Yes.
dragon? I can't remember. The names are so foreign to me. I'm so sorry. So foreign to me. If I see a blonde wig, I know who I'm dealing with. Let's just say
Mm.
that. So in terms of what comes next, obviously Ryan's talked about season 3 and what is going to be coming, and trying to speak to fans, just saying, hey, this is like a 4 season thing. Just be patient and you'll get what you get. Are you excited for what's next? Because it will be a little bit different for you and your character, and the kind of the trajectory of where he goes next.
Yeah, I can't wait. In you had in episode 7, you had the sowing of the dragon seeds. Rhaenyra raises new riders, and they always said that Targaryens are closer to gods than men, and through her actions, Rhaenyra has kind of shrunk that divide between the common folk and dragon lords. We aren't so dissimilar now. It kind of puts into question, our status of like a godlike kind of, of that imagery. And so, Aemond feels very threatened by that. And you see that in
Mm.
episode 8. He starts to get desperate. He goes to his sister, and begs her to mount Dreamfire and, destroy Daemon and his dragon Caraxes, and destroy all of the influence that he has in the Riverlands. But I think that there's definitely a blockade that needs to be broken in season 3, and I think that needs to be broken for sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey you guys!
Hey, you guys!